Like I grew up going hiking, but they weren't big into like camping or like really roughing it. So when I was like 13 or 14, they sent me to this outdoor camp and they were like, she's going to hate this. She's never slept outside for a week. And I came back like dirty and loving it.
What was that journey like, and for like how you're starting to make this more sustainable?
I guess the biggest secret to traveling a lot is that I'm not technically employed. I only do like side jobs and I have like a lot of connections in my hometown. So when I'm home, I'm like working with events, I'm photographing weddings, I'm doing like building people's websites. I just like made myself learn all these random skills so that I could do all these random side jobs.
What's the most challenging thing about what you do?
Challenging, oof. Probably.
I'm here with Taylor Hutcheson, and she has a wonderful life. It's I guess you could say semi-nomad. She's calling from her area somewhere in Georgia. We won't say where, but that's where she's mainly stationed. But we're going to get into photography. We're going to get into traveling, and how does somebody get to do what they do? Were you always an outdoor person? Where were you born? Tell us a little about your mom and dad, just to get an idea about you a little bit.
Yeah, so I was born in Georgia. I was technically born in South Georgia, which is like flat as a pancake if you've ever been down there. Um, and my parents like kind of grew up like I grew up going hiking, but they weren't big into like camping or like really roughing it. So when I was like 13 or 14, they sent me to this outdoor camp and they were like, she's gonna hate this. She's never slept outside for a week. And I came back like dirty and loving it. Like I was hooked. And so the next 3 summers, I went back to that same camp, and that's when I got into like backpacking and really like got into the outdoors and like camping more. And yeah, then I got my own truck and I put a rooftop tent on it, and now that's how I travel. It was like out of my truck all the time.
So when was the first time? What did that look like? You like the first time? How old were you? And were you 16 when that happened, or when did you like get this truck, put together, and what was the first big journey?
Yeah, so I got my truck when I was 17, but I wasn't allowed to like my parents bought it. My parents bought it for me as a high school graduation gift, but I couldn't do anything with it until I had a college degree. So they got this truck for me, and so it was technically theirs, but I like drove it, whatever. So when I finally turned 20, I got my associates, and I just had my daughter and gotten out of like that whole situation. And so I got into like off-roading as like an outlet. Like I had friends who kind of like did it in high school, and I always thought it was cool. And I never thought I would get into it myself though. And then all that happened, and I was like, you know what? I'm ready to just do something completely different than I've ever done. And so I bought this really cheap like lift kit off Facebook Marketplace and like lifted my truck, and it was awful suspension, by the way. It was terrible. But I lifted my truck up, and then I got like a rooftop tent, and like I traded for a bed rack, and then I was like set, and I was like going out all the time with all these groups. I didn't know what I was doing. I was like packing like random stuff in like plastic bins I got at Walmart, and just sleeping in my tent, my little Walmart sleeping bag, like whatever got me out. It was cheap, but I got outside doing it. And now it's come a long way. And like, I've actually like learned what's good and what's not. And like, I have like proper gear now, but it was all just like a healing, really kind of spontaneous thing.
Take us on that journey. Like, how does one get more, obviously the vehicle, no pun intended, is to, do your photography, work with brands, to kind of, fund your quest, get maybe a little bit better of a rig, and equipment and do that. Have you done that yet, to where you kind of upgraded, and what was that journey like, of like how you're starting to make this more sustainable?
Yeah. Well, I guess the biggest secret to traveling a lot is that I'm not technically employed, which
Yeah.
is like scares a lot of people. They're like,
Yeah.
how are you alive? But I only do like side jobs, and I have like a lot of connections in my hometown. So when I'm home, I'm like working with events, I'm photographing weddings, I'm doing like building people's websites. I just like made myself learn all these random skills so that I could do all these random side jobs. And that's how I like ultimately fund everything. Cause then like I'll come back and I'll work for like a month or two and I'll save and I'll save and I'll save. And then when I travel, I also try to do it really inexpensively. But in terms of like getting more into like the content creation world, that was this year specifically. Like this is the first year I took it truly seriously. So I started out the year with like 1,000 followers, and now I'm at like 12,000, over 12,500. And it's all just been like through this like crazy journey of like budget traveling like crazy. And I got into photography before that, so like I already had my camera and stuff, but I just never applied it back into like what I wanted to do. And this is year that I jumped in with 2 feet, and I was like, we'll see what happens. It's been good so far.
That's the vehicle though, isn't it? You know what? Because you're already out there, you're going to places that are like, there's an advantage to the content, and then sometimes brands will say, hey, take our pictures or do this with this brand, out when you're out there, and then get a little bit of kickback or product or whatever, how does that work?
So at first I was doing a lot of like gifted things. So like that's like when brands would send me like products and stuff. And I was like, this is great, because I was getting a lot of like products that like I needed to use anyway. And so I was doing a lot of like gifted projects and stuff with brands. And then I started piecing in that like, some brands will offer you money. And like, I know like people obviously do it full time, but like once I kind of started making that connection, I was like, And so at the time I was working, like when I first really started, I was targeting hardcore Airbnbs. And I kind of realized I didn't want to go that direction. But at first it was like Airbnbs. And so I'd put together these little photography packages that I could offer in addition to like a stay with content coverage. And I found that like people were accepting it. And like, so I started making like little chunks of like, like little photography sales here and there with these Airbnbs I was working with. And then it would like pay for my gas and my food, at least for the trip. And so then like whatever I had from side jobs could be left over. And now I'm actually consistently working with brands for payment, and it's still not quite like full time where I'd want it to be, but it's really getting there now that I have like that repertoire and like a nice portfolio and all these reviews.
Meet the Bolo Pack, the ultimate travel companion that transforms into a hammock, a pop-up tent, and even a cooler. Whether you're hiking, camping, or chilling at the beach, the Bolo Pack has you covered. First up, the Bolo Pack is a sleek, compact backpack, perfect for day trips or long adventures. Need a break? With a simple pull, the Bolo Pack transforms into a relaxing hammock, perfect for catching your breath during hikes. Planning to spend the night? The Bolo Pack also converts into a pop-up tent, giving you shelter wherever you go. And the best part? The Bolo Pack doubles as a cooler, keeping your food and drinks fresh for hours. Let me show you how easy it is to switch between modes. First, the hammock. Just a few simple steps, and you're ready to relax. Next, the pop-up tent for quick shelter setup. And finally, the cooler function, ensuring you stay refreshed on the go. From day hikes to weekend getaways, the Bolo Pack adapts to your needs. Whether you're chilling, camping, or keeping your snacks cool, ready to upgrade your travel game? Get your Bolo Pack today and take your adventures to the next level. Link in the description.
So, and where's your next, I mean, you were talking about in the pregame, we were talking about going to Africa, but are you doing anything before that? Where's your next adventure?
I have a lot before then. So currently I have Yosemite on the calendar in winter. So I'm hoping to make it for Fire Fall, which is like a really crazy phenomenon. I'm so excited. I'm trying to make it to Alaska this winter for the Northern Lights too. And I have like a little group going with that. So it's like super affordable. And then, God, where else am I going? I think I'm going to Joshua Tree.
Wow. And
Utah is kind of in the talks as well. Like in like serious talks. I have other ideas, but that's what's certain right now.
So how do you navigate, you have a child, how does that work out? How do you manage that?
Yeah, so she's 4, which makes it like easy and hard at the same time. Like, she packs light, but she's also like, she's 4, so you have to like keep her mentally happy. But she honestly has been flying, like in terms of like flying and traveling, she's been doing this since she was like tea tiny. So like we get in the car and she's like, whatever, she's got her snacks and her TV and like she'll just go. Like we've done 15-hour days and she doesn't think twice about it. And or like, you know, airplane rides, like she's really great on planes. But sometimes I take her with me. Sometimes I don't. Sometimes she stays like with her, you know, grandparents and they all do whatever they do. And then that's when I go do like my more extreme things. So like this summer I had a trip to Montana. And they watched her, and that was when I planned like these 7-8 hour hikes where I was like really doing like crazy stuff, versus when she's with me, it's more like you have to kind of do like the shorter hikes, and I have to plan more like sightseeing and obviously a lot more bathroom stops because she's 4. But I don't know, like I just plan my trips accordingly, and I try to get my parents to watch her for certain things, and that helps immensely.
Yeah, you can get her involved eventually with, you know, like, you know, Oshkosh, Bagosh, or whatever, who might, you know, sponsor you or something. Or I don't know. I mean, you know, you're out there, and because we've talked to other, you know, photographers, you know, and you know, when they're out there, they're shooting content. Either, you know, sometimes you get to that level where, and I guess that's the next subject is where do you, you know, go from here, and what's Africa all about, and what's the next step on how to grow, and what's the long-term play?
Ooh, that was a lot of different questions.
3-parter, I think. Yeah.
Well, I guess the next step for me is I've actually just started doing this mentorship. So like, you know, a lot of people like, you know, they talk about how they're self-made, and I don't really believe that anyone's ever self-made. There are people there, like there's at least one person in your life supporting you. There's one person, like if it's your best friend, they're rooting you on. And so I'm grateful. I have a phenomenal support system, and I've just started doing this mentorship with the girl that I'm friends with as well. And so she's helping me to like really get to that next level of like doing this full time and getting paid to do this full time, where I don't have to do side jobs anymore. Yay. And in terms of Africa, that's like super separate, but I am planning a trip to Africa next year. It's a 2-week group trip, and we'll spend a week climbing Kilimanjaro, and picked the route with the highest success rate because I really wanted to make sure whoever came actually could complete it. There's a 98% chance of success. So like, I feel really confident that everyone's going to make it up, and like we're going to be cheering each other on. And like, I'm stoked. Like, it's a big deal. And then we're going to do a 5-day safari right after. So full 2 weeks in Tanzania, and it's going to be so epic. I'm stoked for it.
You know, in your travels, what would you say is I'm sure there's one moment that stands out that was most unusual, or something that stands out. What would be that moment so far?
Like scary, or
it could be scary, weird, you know, like something that just kind of just stands out, like a milestone, or just, you know, just wacky circus situation or something. You know, just could be anything, you know, because you're out there doing something that's out of the norm. You know, it's like not like, you know, it's like, you know, I could ask somebody, what's the strangest thing that happened to your 9 to 5? But for you, you know, what you do, that's a little different. So, I mean, you've had probably seen some things.
Yeah, I could agree with that. When I first started really traveling, like out of my truck and stuff, I had all this faith that like the world was great and rainbows and whatever. And I learned really fast a lot of things, like when you're traveling solo, like safety things. And I learned in ways that like it could have gotten really bad. And I'm really like blessed that it didn't. And like, I can remember one night in particular, I arrived really, really late at this campsite. I say that with quotation marks, in the desert. And like, it was like one of those things where like something just felt really off. And I'm driving into this like public land up the road, and I'm like just like the spidey senses, as I call it. I'm like, they're going off. I was like, something's just really strange about this. And I go to pull into like this like little where I was in the desert, there was like these really tall bushes, and then there was like little sections I haven't cleared off for people to camp. And I went to pull off in one of these cleared sections, and there was just like all these like random like enclosed trailers. And for some reason that like really set off alarm bells. And I was like, all right, this isn't going to work. So I turn around and I was like, I'm going to drive back to Bryce Canyon National Park, which is like a couple of hours from me. But I was like, I don't want to stay in this desert. Like something's just weird about it. And I go to get back on the main road, and there are people blocking the road. like there's like two vehicles blocking both lanes of traffic, and they're like standing out of their vehicles. And I was like, I don't know what I just rolled up on, but I'm going to leave. And so I turned to go the other direction from where these people are blocking the road, and they sprint to their cars, and they are chasing me at 100 miles an hour up these two-lane back roads through the desert, like turn for turn. Like I did the whole like, oh, make 4 to 5 turns to see if they're following you. They were following me, turn for turn, up my butt. And somehow at some point the road got curvy enough where I was able to turn off and like lose them. But I just remember being like, I'm in the desert alone and I don't know what to do. And it was terrifying. And I made that decision that night. I ended up driving all the way to Moab from Zion area. I was like, I ended up driving all the way like 5 hours through the night. But since then I have learned, like, I arrive at campsites in the daylight, and like people always have my location especially when I'm solo. I'm like, this is exactly where I am. If I go missing, this is my last location. And like people live track my phone when I'm that was probably like the most like monumental, like, wow, the world can't be trusted and you should like get places in the daylight kind of moment. It was terrifying.
Heck yeah. Did you find out what it was?
I have no idea. I didn't want to go back, and I haven't been back since. And I've like purposely avoided that part of the state.
Did you like even Google like Google like that area and like, cult or anything, like were the keywords that maybe like, I don't know. That's crazy.
Like, it was wild. I actually ended up telling one of my friends who is from Utah about it, and he kind of knew the area, and he's like, yeah, drugs are really bad. They're like cartel level stuff. I was like, oh, so that's probably what I rolled up on. Great.
Well, that's crazy.
Yeah, it was scary. It was terrifying. I was like, that's like the thing that always comes to like, what's your craziest travel story? I'm like, I was chased through the desert.
What's the most challenging thing about what you do?
Challenging. Oof. Probably honestly like balancing it all. Like I said, I have a 4-year-old and I also have a dog, like a big dog, and finding like a balance between being on the road, when to take them with me, when not to, and like trying to make sure I'm like I'm a single mom. So like making sure I'm fully present for her, like my kid and my dog, but also like having time for me. Like ultimately it's literally finding a balance, because I am playing so many different roles and trying to make sure I'm like present for all of them and giving them all proper attention. And I still haven't really completely figured it out, but we're getting there. It's just kind of chaos.
What's the long-term play? Like, the overall, what's the ultimate goal, and what's, the 30,000 foot view of what you want to do, with this particular career?
Ultimately, I'm hoping to travel full time with my daughter. I'd like to get my truck different setup to where we could like safely and like reasonably stay out of it, like even in the cold months. Like I really want, they have these like cool hard shell campers that have a rooftop tent built into them, so it's all interconnected and everything can be like locked, and no one can get in it. Mm-hmm. And ultimately I'd like to have like a setup to where I could travel with my daughter and my dog and myself, and like have us all safe. And like ultimately I just want to travel full time, and I really like to do like North American focused stuff. Like I know Africa was a little like out of what I normally do, but I was like, this is such a cool adventure. I thought it'd be cool. But ultimately I want to travel full time and be working with brands and like building these group trips. Also, I love group trips. Like before this, I ran an off-road group. And so like I was always taking groups out, and I just love meeting new people and like sharing these adventures and watching people's face light up when they're encouraging each other through these stuff. Like that's like a highlight for me of doing all this, is meeting new people and building those connections.
What about with, the Winnebagos, like I was just in, about 6 months ago, I was in Sun Valley, Idaho, and everybody, like, or not everybody, but I see a lot of like the souped up, like, the long vans that are converted with like, they have like bathrooms in them and everything, and they're just, it's an awesome setup. You've seen them, right? So, I mean, it's expensive, but is that the type of rig that is ultimately, as far as continental United States travel or just North America in general kind of travel is concerned? I
think a lot of people go that route. For me, like my truck is like also like super sentimental to me. So I don't know if I could personally ever like part with it or trade it out for me. Like my favorite feeling is being like in my truck, in my blue Tacoma.
Yeah.
Like that's just like a little safe space. So like I don't know if I could personally trade out the vans, but a lot of people do. And like I have friends who live full time in vans, and those are definitely really nice, especially in the winter, because you got like actual, insulation. But I don't know if it'd be for me.
There's a lot of outdoor people like rock climbers and campers and pro bass fishermen, all are choosing that route. It said your route is basically photography. So working probably that would be your North America vehicle, and then you want to do more international travel. It sounds like, right? Like Africa. You want to do more of that, and then build the brand from out there, right?
Yeah, a little bit. I mean, I think there's so much to see in North America that people don't talk about enough. Like they're like, oh, I went to Banff and I went to Denver and I saw North America. And I'm like, there is so much more here that like I like international's like really cool. And I have like a little bit of expansion there. But like for me, like, I don't know, just being in the States and or like exploring Canada, or like I went to Alaska this summer. That was literally life changing.
Oh, wow.
It was the most beautiful place I think of. And I've been to Switzerland. I've been to Italy, and like Alaska might be the most beautiful place I've ever seen. Like, I just think America, like North America, like, including like parts of Mexico, Canada, is like really underrated. And I'm like, come on, guys, you guys can like get in your car and go explore this right here. It's in your backyard.
I agree. Different type of traveling, but I spent 4 months on the road all over North America doing a documentary. I directed a documentary on raves and house music, and spent just 4 months on the road going around the whole United States. And it is outstanding what you could find, especially you're going to Yosemite. Like Northern California is just breathtaking. It's amazing. Have you seen
this is my biggest.
How about the Shasta Mountains? Have you seen the Shasta Mountains?
I've seen pictures. I haven't been.
Yeah, it's literally like you ever go to a ballpark and you see like the pitcher's mound has like red sand. It's like a reddish kind of dirt, Shasta Lake and the Shasta Mountains, going through those mountains. I've kind of gone through the mountains down from like Vancouver down Washington and Oregon and down into Northern California. And it's just like you go through these mountains and like the trees are like so green and majestic. And then you see these like the sand that is so red, like it's been groomed by like a baseball mound in one of those professional baseball fields. And it's just gorgeous. And it's just like, that's America, there's just so much to see here, So, and then you go on the other side of the country and you could see the Smoky Mountains of Tennessee. And there's like 100-foot walls of granite that you're driving through. So this country is so vast, and you get to see all that at an amazing clip, and it's fascinating. Thank you so much for sharing this. Tell everybody how they could find out more about you.
Yeah. So you can find me on Instagram. I'm Tay Wanders. It's real easy, like Tay Wanders around. I'm also on YouTube. I sometimes post. I'm trying to be more consistent, but Instagram's my thing. I'm always sharing. I'm actually working on releasing more group trips too. So like North American based. So
yeah, it looks like you're having a good time. Yeah. Anybody wants to go, so you people can come along with you and they could find out more about your trips and stuff.
Absolutely. Yeah. I post about it all the time on like stories and stuff. So just go give it a follow.
Looks like you're having a good time. Hey, look, if you got the time and this is what you're into, there's a lot of, people out there, but you're just looks like that Taylor's just starting ready to grow big, and you might as well get it before she gets too busy, to where she can't do that anymore. So I highly suggest it. Looks like you're just doing great, and thank you so much for sharing.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me.
Thanks for joining us. Gear up for your next adventure and head over to Bolotor.com to check out the amazing Bolo Pack and their other innovative outdoor gear. Catch you next time.